Yeah, anything you want to?
No, good morning, and thank you for attending. I know a lot of the heavy policy stuff we've kind of been through and are not looking at today, and that's probably a good thing, but I appreciate you being here. Amir's going to run through some slides, and as always, this is a small group, informal. If you have a question, stop us and ask your question. Even if it's off topic, if we can answer your questions, we're happy to do it. And so we'll get started.
So good morning, everyone. We essentially are going to give you a quick update on both the Tule and the Tulare Lake subbasin and where Tri-County's at with both of those. Is Nick? Oh,
yeah,
yes, he's on. Nick, I'll ask you to give us a quick update on the Tule Trust. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the recent DWR subsidence management, best management practices document that was submitted. And we do have some policy issues to discuss, and that'll be the majority of the meeting on the revised meter policy. That this is still the draft of the policy. We're going to look for input from this group, and then we're going to wrap it up and give you back a portion of your day. Nick, if you want to give everybody maybe a little quick introduction. I think most people probably know who you are, but just in case.
Yeah, thanks, Amir, and hi, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person this morning. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Nick Reed-Crace, and I'm the Executive Director for the Tule Basin Land and Water Conservation Trust. Joined at the end of June, so at the 3-month mark, and at some point, I guess I'm going to have to stop saying that I'm new. But I'll give you some brief updates. I think some of you may have heard or known that MLRP had some in-person meetings earlier this week, and it was just a really great opportunity to learn from what's happening with the other block grantees and to kind of meet with other stakeholders involved in MLRP. And I think more than anything, it's just nice to be sharing, those common challenges and potential solutions. And definitely, I know I got a lot of more contacts out of that. And I think we'll be pushing some of those things forward. One of the things that we were discussing, and I know Kathy is much more involved in this, is really how the trust can really partner a little bit more closely with Allensworth. And so this is something that we are looking to see how we can play a role as they move forward with potential, land acquisition or repurposing, how the trust can really support them and kind of help them at scale, I think would be the best way to talk about that, right? And so that's something that we're definitely starting and engaging in more conversations about. At a more kind of technical level, we're holding an Ag Advisory Committee under MLRP. The formal invite hasn't gone out or flyers, but it's going to be on October 23rd at 4 p.m. at the Tule Trust office, which is located at the International Ag Center in Tulare. So once we have the agenda finalized, I'll share it out, and then I think the next board meeting for Tri-County will be before that. So I'll be sure to plug it before that as well. And then just a quick update on Caponero. We are still going through permitting. We got responses from CDFW on the restoration management permit. So I'm looking through those today, and then hopefully we'll be responding by the end of the week to them. And then Bureau of Reclamation is currently reviewing the biological assessment. So we are looking to move all of that forward and really hopeful to have all the permitting done by late this year or early next year, so that we can really start engaging in solid talks in terms of phase 2 implementation, as well as getting more people out to Caponero Creek and really publicizing it and trying to get more visibility. So those are some high level updates from the trust. Any questions?
Nick, the obvious question is when does the MLRP money expire? Isn't the grant? Were you going for an extension, right?
Yeah, so Pixley is the prime on this, so they're requesting an extension. It's something that I've brought up with them as I got onboarded, because currently the funding would end March of next year. However, my understanding is that they're requesting a 1-year no-cost extension. So my understanding is that it should go through the end of 2026 at the very least. But I don't have any updates in terms of where those conversations are between DOC and Pixley Irrigation District.
There's a lot of unspent money in the MLRP program. Okay. Thank you, Nick, for that update. Appreciate that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, asking some of these questions. I'm just trying to.
No, please do. No, please do. And
Yeah.
it's not a problem. I mean, it's definitely something that's on my radar. And I think, at some point we're going to have to decide if for whatever reason if the extension doesn't happen, like how do we pivot, right? And make the most of the funds that we have in the time frame that we have. I don't get the feeling from any other partners on MLRP that there's a high concern that the extension won't come through, but I mean, I'd like to see everything in writing and received before I, fully
No,
fully
Nick,
resolved any stressors. Yeah.
yeah, I have no doubt. I'm sure the DOC will approve the extension. My concern is getting the money spent in the most useful and worthwhile manner, between now and March of 27.
Okay, gotcha.
Which,
Gotcha.
yeah, March of 27 will be here a lot sooner than all of us are probably expecting. So,
Yeah, no kidding.
all right. Thank you, Nick.
Mhm. Yeah, no problem.
Stacy, do you have the slides?
You.
Yes,
Ready for
yes,
them?
I'm ready for
Okay.
it. For the presentation,
Switch
yeah.
over here then.
All right. So, as I mentioned, we're going to give you a few quick updates on both subbasins as well as the DWR Best Management Practices document. So, next slide. So, starting with Tulare Lake, we're still having no communication with the State Water Resource Control Board staff. That's their decision. That is not, and I'm sure all of you are well aware that there's an injunction in place due to the lawsuit from the Kings County Farm Bureau, but that's still the state's interpretation of that injunction, and so they're not communicating with us. And in fact, I was at a meeting with Self-Help for Tulare Lake, and I think somebody from Self-Help mentioned that they had spoken to the state board about Tulare Lake, and then they were immediately shut down, saying, "Oh, we can't talk about that." So we are going to do a unsolicited letter that's kind of going to update the state on all the things that have happened in Tulare Lake since then, because we do want some kind of public document acknowledging the steps and the accomplishments that the GSAs have done over the last year or so that we've had this injunction in place. And it would go directly to the board members. Whether they read it or not, who knows, but at least it's a public document at that point. There are 4 key items that we're working forward on Tulare Lake as a sub-basin. There's a sustainable yield study that needs to be accomplished so that we can determine the exact value that we're going to all use as a sub-basin for the sustainable yield methodology. There is continuing ongoing coordination on the subsidence values when we're setting the minimum thresholds. Tri-County has already set ours for Tulare Lake, and that's been submitted to the state. And there is a map that our firm has prepared that shows all of the subsidence values across the entire sub-basin, with the exception of the El Rico folks that are still working on putting in their values. They're not working on the values, they're just updating the map, I should say. And then we're going to talk and make sure that everything's coordinated. We're working on the Water Year 25 annual report that's due in April of next year, on April 1st of next year. And we're conducting a semi-annual groundwater monitoring event that is now measuring both water levels as well as water quality. Tulare Lake is a little bit behind in the water quality monitoring, but we're going to go ahead and get started this time around, and there are some coordination issues that we're trying to work through. Tri-County, staying on Tulare Lake for a second, Tri-County is working on updating their groundwater sustainability plan for Tulare Lake. We are doing a separate standalone plan from everyone. There's a lot of common information and pages and shared information, basin setting, things of that nature. But there are other places where it's going to be unique to Tri-County. We already have all of our policies in place, and we've already submitted many of those policies, or in fact, all of those policies in the Tule GSP that we just submitted as well. So we are moving forward with that, and our plan is to get that wrapped up and submitted and approved by the board, our board, early next year, and get that thing submitted in there, and then let the rest of the subbasin kind of continue to use that information as they're preparing their documents. If anyone has any questions, please just pipe up. I don't think we can see everybody. I don't know if you can see everybody's hands or anything raised.
No.
Okay. All right, next slide. On the Tule subbasin, as I already mentioned, we submitted a revised draft of 2025 GSP. The reason it's still a draft is because our board is not going to officially approve it until October, and then it will be the 2025 GSP. The state has it. It's up on the Tri-County webpage. You can get a copy off that webpage. We are still taking public comments at this time. So if anybody on this call, I would encourage all of you to download it, read it. If nothing else, please read the executive summary, and then get any and all comments. You can submit them directly to Deanna, and those will be considered as we're finalizing the document. Again, there's a number of policies and plans that are now included in the document. So all these allocation policy and the updated science management plan and all these things that we've been working on for the last year are now part of the plan. The one thing that has not been finalized by the subbasin is this groundwater quality memo. And what we mean by that is when samples are collected, groundwater quality samples, where, when, how often, all those types of things are going to be spelled out. But in addition to that, it also talks about if you collect a water sample and you get a detection above the limits that we have set in the plan, what are the steps that we take? And to me, that's the more critical thing. So that affects not only the individual well that we're sampling, but these are representative monitoring wells. So how wide a net do we have to cast and to inform people that there may be a groundwater quality issue and collect additional samples? So what happens if there's a detection? In fact, the next two slides are information directly out of the draft groundwater quality memo. But these are the compounds that are listed here, are the ones that we are looking to test within the Tule subbasin. There's a lot of discussion still going on whether we need to sample for all of these compounds in the entire subbasin, or if some GSAs where these compounds have been detected should continue to test, while others where they're not detected can move on and not have to spend money. This suite of tests is not inexpensive. The two on the bottom, the PFOS and is a rather expensive test, and it has very low detection limits, and you have to be very careful on how you collect it and all kinds of things. So there's a lot of discussion about not only do we have to collect it everywhere, but what happens? Should we set time limits where it basically, if we don't have a detection of some of these things, after a certain amount of time, we can drop them out. So Kern did do that on theirs. Obviously, the Kern subbasin is out of probation. So my feeling is we should try to mirror as much of what realistically we can't for Kern. You have a question, Deanna?
I'm just thinking, okay, so PFAS and PFOA, does groundwater pumping really have anything to do with that?
They're on the list from the state.
I know.
You know, they're included in our resolution.
We're gonna test them all, I'm just thinking through the next step. So if you have a PFAS or PFOA hit,
Yeah, what happens?
what happens?
Yeah.
And, I mean, are there plumes of PFAS and PFOA? Because we've talked about migrating plumes. If you're
Right.
pumping in one place, it could cause water to move towards that and migrate plumes. But I don't know if PFAS and PFOA concentrate in plumes. I guess we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
But
And the state is using the, it feels like the state's using this as a way to get information.
yeah, I would think. But we're not going to get out of it. But it's
We're not
just.
gonna get out of it.
It seems like it's a non-groundwater issue to me, kind of. It's a contamination issue, but,
You know the nonstick coating and things of that nature, all the chemical that allows that to actually happen. So it is and they use it in fire retardants. They
Yeah.
use it at airports. They use it in a lot of different chemical applications. But it is one of those chemicals that once it gets into the ecosystem, it doesn't break down very readily. And so you do see, and it's got a very low, very, very low detection limit of what they say is also the health risk issues associated with it. So the state right now, completely separate from the GSA, is paying Sac State and our firm to go out and collect a whole bunch of samples from every municipal and community supply well across the entire state, find out how prevalent this issue is. And Myron, I suspect that the state is using the SGMA process to collect additional information, because there's no indication that we have a problem, but we don't, it's kind of like proven negative, right?
so what's the inside scoop then? Is it mostly concentrated in just certain areas? Or do you know yet?
I don't know. But I can find out that answer for you.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to know, what your firm is detecting and where it's at, or if it's, a Southern California thing, or,
It definitely, airports, things like that, you see it everywhere,
yeah,
and it's super hard to get out of the ground.
yeah.
It's very expensive.
And is that, but like for General Airport, do you think it's from fuel?
No, it's like fire retardant and other,
That's only certain airports.
yeah, it could be certain airports, yeah. Big municipal airports, yeah. We're doing a ton of work in Seattle right now on this very issue.
Because like here, we only have a few airports that deal with,
Right.
it'll be Porterville, who has a base,
Right.
a firefighting base, Paso Robles.
Yeah.
But like Visalia,
They also, normally we're testing parts per billion, and this stuff is like parts per trillion, so it doesn't take very much. So I think that's part of what the state's trying to do, is get a better handle on it. But unfortunately, it is written into our resolution, so we have to test for it.
I doubt if we'll find it.
I hope not. I hope not.
Not in our groundwater.
It was on everything though, from our clothes to,
Yeah.
they were using it on everything.
Yeah.
And I think they've stopped,
Yeah,
stopped using it, but it was something that was very prevalent. So I'm sure you will find it near any type of waste facilities, or
Yeah.
anything like that. You're gonna find
Right.
some sort of concentrations of it, but that shouldn't be in Tri-County. Tri-County really should have, I can't think of where we could have PFAS or PFOA, but
Right.
I'm interested to find out.
You're
And
right.
then I think that is a good question for us, because if we don't have it,
Can
if
we
it's
stop
not
sampling?
here, why are we paying for that?
right. Very
Intense
expensive.
sampling?
Yeah,
If we could take that off the list, it makes a difference in what we,
yeah.
but,
And we don't want this to be like, 3 years of sampling. We want it to be a lot less than that. So we're arm wrestling internally to figure out exactly what that number should be. All right, next slide. This is a very busy slide, and I apologize. I shrunk down this large table. Essentially, what this slide is if you got a one of the compounds that was just on that previous list, what do you, if you have an exceedance of the minimum threshold value, what do you do? And if you follow the green yes, obviously the no is easy. If you follow the green yes, you know, it starts with resampling the well, and there's some timelines in there about resampling, and then if those come back, then you look at the historical water quality data, you look at pre-2015 values, and you know, one of the things that we feel that this doesn't quite adequately address is some of our more naturally occurring compounds, and so there's still some work to be done on this, but there is going to be some table very similar to this that essentially says, what are the steps you're going to do if we have this? And who do we notify, and how wide an area do we have to notify? Byron, you look very serious at me.
No, I'm just saying that we're doing that already, right? We have people doing that already in our dairy.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not all these
Yeah,
compounds.
yeah, you're doing it for the nitrates,
and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that, right?
That's exactly right.
So,
That's exactly it. I don't want to have to run that full list on, let's say each representative well covers 3 mile radius. We don't want to have to go through in that 3 mile radius and have to sample every single well for that longer list, or even the 1 or 2 compounds could get very expensive. So, you know, we're trying to figure out what makes sense.
you don't want to duplicate, right?
And we don't want to
So,
duplicate, yeah.
Because we have a groundwater monitoring program
Right,
for what we do.
right.
And I'm not gonna say that that's the neighbor, but for us, for our property,
Right. Yeah, we don't want to duplicate things that are already occurring, and as much as possible, use existing data. Okay, next slide. So, last thing, just real quick then, is an update on the best management practices document. The state had sent out a draft Subsidence BMP document for public comment. The public comment period ended on the 22nd. We, Tri-County, did submit comments, yeah.
Actually, I read something from the department, it said it ended today on the
Oh, they
twenty-fourth.
did, they did.
Extended it 2 days.
Yeah, they
so-
extended it 2 days, you're right,
We said there's on the original date, 22nd, but just in case somebody on the call
yeah,
wants to make a comment on it, it was extended through today.
yeah. You're right, I did see that too. I was like, oh, I don't care, because we already submitted.
Right, yeah.
But there was basically, I'm not gonna go through all of our comments, but you see a list of, we kind of broke down and summarized some of our comments, based on those 4, general areas and addressed, you know, the attorneys and Jeff Centek and a few other folks helped put together these comments. I know lots of other agencies, lots of other organizations have also submitted comments. I've read some of them that I've seen, and there are some similar concerns. The document for best management practices, there's 2 things that bother me the most. One is it talks a lot about how subsidence stopped in the mid-70s when we built some of the surface water conveyance projects, 60s and 70s. But it doesn't complete the conversation, which talks about then those reductions in those surface water supply, right? It almost seems to imply that, hey, we brought you all this water, and then you kept pumping more. And that's not the case. It doesn't talk about the fact that those supplies have been reduced. The other thing, it has a lot of policy implications and things of that nature that are well outside of what we think should be covered in a best management practices. This is not, it's a guidance document, and we don't see that as the role of the guidance document. And then there were some technical issues where we felt like the document needs to expand on and clarify a few things. But yeah, so the state is then going to work. I believe their plan is to try and finalize this thing by December. Yeah, end of year. Yeah, end of year. So they're expecting to finalize this document. Again, it's a guidance document. It is, that is part of one of our comments is, clarifying the the fact that it is just a guidance document and not something that's required. And the reason that that's important is, as I mentioned a minute ago, the Tri-County submitted our updated 2025 GSP. When we did, and we submitted that to the State Water Board. One of the questions we got from the State Water Board via email before that submittal was how does subsidence discussion compare to this draft document? So we did have to address, and we prepared a separate letter addressing that from our submittal. But the fact that they did require that is bothersome, because this is a draft guidance document. So there is definitely an expectation, I think, that once this comes out, as people are reviewing your GSPs, they're going to go, hey, how are you meeting this criteria and other criteria that are in the guidance document?
Yeah, I'd just say that a little plainer. I think the problem is State Water Resource Control Board staff will lean on this guidance document, and there are things in there that were definitely problematic, particularly in mitigation discussions and different things, and unfortunately, we're in this probationary status where the State Water Resource Control Board staff is really dictating, that's a terrible word, but directing what we have to adhere to, for lack of a better word. And the concern is they'll take this draft document and say, oh, again, we didn't go far enough in some respects, or you have to add more, and it will be, there was a lot of, get in the weeds. There was a lot of discussion about critical head. Well, critical head, we don't really have, forgive me if I'm wrong, we don't have all the data in place to know what critical head is at each individual spot. That's something that we'll have to work on. Am I right to say that?
No, you're right.
And so it's asking for things that we don't have the data on currently, but we could work towards that. It's just, are they gonna hold us to that and say, oh, until you get there, then you can't, leave our probationary status, or, what are they gonna take out of that document to say, oh, you haven't met the burden yet?
Right.
Well, I felt the same way when I went to that little meeting in Delano,
Yeah.
and I walked out of there not feeling very good, because I think those guys they're just,
Not too late to send a comment letter, Myron.
I just don't know how to word it, but
Let's talk offline.
they're not backing down.
Yeah.
And it's,
They're very proud of this document, boy. I've never seen so many people try to break their arms patting each other on the back.
It took 2 years to write it.
Yeah, more than 2, yeah. They're very proud of this
it's
document.
just, they're basically saying that, we don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where this plan was supposed to,
yeah,
be finalized by 2040.
yeah.
Now they're cutting their throat right now.
Yeah, they, I didn't read this, but on my slide I just had up, we basically say that the bottom line is they're expecting to raise groundwater elevations as high and as quickly as possible. And that literally, that's one sentence of the entire document, right there. So if you could keep our levels at 23 every year, Myron, we'd be fine. Yeah, the wettest year of,
But there's, I can't stop thinking about this whole thing, right? But there's multiple issues that we gotta,
yeah,
and why we're where we're at. Now, I'm a common sense type guy. I don't have a lot of science behind it, but multiple things that are wrong,
yeah.
in my opinion.
Well, as I said, the subsidence was reduced quite a bit in that 60s and 70s time period when the surface water supply was here. When you start to lose that supply, it's only a finite amount of water, and it has to come from somewhere.
And I still think that with the implementation of lots and lots of permanent crops has another
Yeah,
big effect on it.
yeah. Our hands aren't completely clean either, so I will grant you that. Okay. If I don't see any questions, we're gonna keep moving, so I promised I'd get you guys out of here early. Nick,
Sorry,
you have a question?
Yeah, just from an earlier point, for the draft GSP, what's the deadline if we do have any comments that we want to provide as we review that?
I don't recall what date we set. Did we say October 3rd, or is that, because it's really up to how long you need. And we did set a time. That was a week before the final.
Probably the second.
We said second or third.
Yeah, Nick, I just count it as the third, and if you get us any comments by the third, we would appreciate it.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
And if you have any questions as you're reading through it, feel free to reach out.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
And that applies to everybody on the call. Okay, do you
Draft
have,
policy, I
yes,
do.
that's policy.
Switch over to that. Okay.
So we have updated the water meter policy. Yeah. And what you're seeing on the screen, obviously, is the red line version. Stacey, are you gonna send it out?
It went out before this
Okay,
meeting.
so a copy of this document went out to everybody right before this meeting, so you'll probably have it in your emails as well. We went through and specifically, the reason we wanted to update the meter policy was to bring it in line with some of the other GSAs in the area. We also felt that there was a couple of areas where we were too restrictive and unnecessarily, and in a couple of places, I think in one place we were just duplicate, and so it just needed to be cleaned up a little bit. The initial policy had been written a number of years ago, and it was a little bit of house cleaning for this document. Not nearly as exciting as the groundwater allocations and things of that nature, but some things that needed to be cleaned up. So if you go down to section 3, one of the big changes in there is, of course, section 8.1, where we have some very restrictive requirements on AWWA standards and other things, and most of the other GSAs in the Tule subbasin didn't have those kinds of standards, so we kind of cleaned up some of that, try to allow for the existing meters that people have as well, and try to work out and work with everyone as much as we could. As long as you can give us instantaneous flow and a volume totalizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
At the end, I'll
Oh, okay.
add.
Yeah. And then we kind of clarified some of on 8.2, clarified some of the accuracy specifications. And 8.3 basically is, hey, you need to install this in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications and register the meter in basin safe. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, for 8.3, just out of curiosity, how would you enforce that? Like, how would we know whether they installed it according to the manufacturer's specifications?
Then I'll add now. That's a very good question. So let's just go back to the policy we've adopted. We've adopted a policy that says we are moving to metered data as of January 1. There are not a lot of GSAs that have gone to metered data, but the one that has been successful doing that has somebody reading those meters and checking specifications. I am in a search right now for a consultant that will be providing Tri-County with a service of, one, going out and inspecting each meter to make sure that they are to those specifications, and two, they will provide monthly meter readings to Tri-County. So that might be news to some of you on this call, because it's a new policy, and or a new it's something that we hadn't really considered. We were going to do manual readings into Basin Safe by each landowner, I can tell you the Tule Subbasin has tried that on small scale, just along their subsidence area and their management zones on the Bryant Kern Canal, and it hasn't gone well at all. And they have a full-time person just trying to deal with that, and it's, again, small scale, and it's a full-time job daily just to try to deal with erroneous information and problems with self-reporting. So yeah, that's how we're going to enforce that. There will be somebody looking at each designated meter and providing that data back to Tri-County. We have in our allocation policy that if the if the meters aren't weren't functioning properly, then we are going to revert back to the Land IQ data with a multiplier. So that's a real good incentive to following the meter policy, and there will be some notifications coming out on what I've just said, so expect some notifications in your mailbox. And if there's questions on that, I suppose I could take those.
Yeah.
That was a lot, but...
I was gonna pause and see if anybody did have any questions.
Yeah, hand raised.
I got a couple questions.
I thought you might, Brandon.
All right, so just to make sure I understood though correctly, so Tri-County GSA is paying someone to come out to do a site visit on all the wells every month and to make sure they're calibrated? Is it, I mean, in general?
Yes,
recap?
they'll first make sure that they meet the requirements, the manufacturer requirements. 2, they'll read the meters monthly and input that data into BasinSafe. And 3, they will maintain the calibration schedule, which on here is every 5 years, to make sure that every 5 years the meters are being recalibrated and are on schedule. They will alert landowners to meters that are broken or not reading. There'll be a suite of things of information they'll provide directly to landowners as well.
Okay, and then at that point, it's on the landowners to fix it, or is this person doing?
No, it would be, you would just be notified.
Notified. Okay.
Yes.
The cost for the person or company coming out and doing is funded through where?
Tri-County.
Tri-County. And then my last question is, and I mean, maybe insurance, right? You know, kind of liability with somebody coming on the property is something that probably needs to be talked about, and figuring out who and how they're covered.
There's 2 things there, Brandon. I have worked on an access agreement with our attorneys. I could say other districts haven't done that. They've just wrote it in their policy, and so I'm still discussing that with our attorney. But we will likely go with access agreements, and that will be covered in those agreements.
Yeah, and just, I mean, a little feedback on that. For us, it's, you know, if it's a district-owned turnout or district-owned meter, right? That's kind of the makes it easier, I guess is the best way to put that. But we're talking about landowners' meters, landowners' properties, stuff like that, and it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, on the wells that we monitor, we do have access agreements for those. And you're right, Brandon, they do have, indemnification language and things of that nature to protect the landowner as well.
Well, when that access agreement, it'll be circulated for review.
Yes.
Okay. And maybe just another comment or thought in terms of, you know, annual pump tests that may be conducted regularly anyway. Is there a use for that here?
Yes, and we'll figure out a way to incorporate that, and for anyone who does it, we'll try to see how we can record or have a place to record that information.
Okay. I mean, understanding the this person is paid through Tri-County. I mean, it's, you know, money coming out of landowners' pockets ultimately, right? So if there's something we're already doing, already paying for, if it helps alleviate some of the cost, that's kind of the other point I was trying to make there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We,
Thank you.
we understand,
No
Yeah.
problem. Thank you for your comments.
we had a conversation with, Kern Clary, and they've gone to meters, and, you know, what they started with and what they thought was gonna be the process and where they're at today are two, you know, very, very different things. And so we understand that this may be an evolving process and things might change, but they would be, process changes rather than, you know, any substantial type of requirements. At least that's what we're hoping. Okay, so I was on A5, we talked about meter calibration every 5 years instead of 4 now. And then we took out the information about reporting to Tri-County because it's already gonna be in Basin Safe. So that made it the old section C, now the new section B as in boy. We're essentially saying that, you know, this is where we were just talking about access to the property, that you'll allow the authority and its agents to enter the property and record monthly data. We'll work on that access agreement. Again, that'll all come from legal and we're working with them. The calibration schedule was moved earlier into the document, so we took it out. And then as far as fees are concerned, you know, essentially that the well owner is responsible for those costs associated with the meter install and calibration. But we will try to see if there are options for us to come up with some funding opportunities and that might be outside of that. So we do allow to look into some of those.
We do still have a application pending before the Bureau of Reclamation
Yes.
for a water smart grant
Yes.
for meters. So, you know, it's been stalled, but we'll see if something comes of that at some point, and then we would be able to provide for replacement meters or updated meters through that grant process.
Yeah. Just going back to item above, yeah. I do want you guys to note that we did take out some of the confidentiality stuff. I think it was legal that had some concerns about that particular language. And
Well, we've come a long way since 2020.
that's true. Yeah.
Keeping, you know, what we thought would happen with
Right.
data back in the early days of Sigma has
Yeah.
flipped in general, so.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we did remove that, it just wasn't gonna be enforceable the way it was written. Next. Now, this gets back to Brandon's question as well about enforcement. So listen, if you, don't comply or you provide inaccurate data to Tri-County, then they're subject to penalties. That's E.1. And E.2 is anyone who fails to comply with the meter installation registration or permission for the authority to read and report the meter data, you will be billed using Land IQ, which is what Deanna was talking about earlier, and there's a 2% multiplier on that. And that'll, of course, just be the estimated amount that we get from the Land IQ data. So, that is, the other things that changed, if you move on, we updated the compliance schedule, and then we removed a bunch of information that we didn't need to be, in here because we've now got Basin Safe. So, as I said, this document was prepared a number of years ago and really did need to be updated to match what we currently have and how we're currently operating the GSA. we are looking for your public comments on the document. We're looking for everybody to read it, and get comments back to Deanna. And any concerns that you might have, any questions, feel free to reach out to her. We will then take any of those comments, start to finalize this for our next board meeting.
Yes, the comments by, same as GST, by October 3rd.
Yes. This one is not nearly as extensive, but rather
Shorter read.
shorter read, but it's also just kind of cleaning up, and as I said, matching what we're currently and how we're currently operating as a subbase and as a GSA.
A quick question, if it's gonna be, this person is going to read this and enter it into space and say, do we, for the compliance for the state, when we have to give our meter readings, does that still have to come from us personally, or do we go to our Basin Safe to get that information? And
That's a very good question. So currently, you would have to, supply that data to the state directly. The state did have, a caveat to that the last I spoke with the state, they said that, GSA could do it on behalf of a landowner, but the landowner had to like put you in as the designee to provide that data. I think, as we move to meter data particularly, that might be another discussion with the state to say, okay, if we end up in another year after this year, which, who knows, maybe at that point we say to the state, okay,
We hope
there's a better way to do this. We're collecting all the data, allow us to do it on behalf of the landowners. But we're not there yet. So right now, as it stands, each landowner would be, the person to submit their data to the state. That's been delayed again. What's the new delay? Now it's May 1.
May 1, yeah.
May 1.
Yeah, May 1, yeah.
May 1. And we should hear about our fee exclusion request, our request to be excluded from that before that. But the way I understand it, probably not till April, so my suggestion is to keep collecting that data and wait for updates on the fee exclusion. But you'll have to have that data available. I don't know what will happen with the state, but again, they have very little carrots in front of them to let us out when they're looking at, state funding imbalances, so.
Yeah. Just for anybody on the call who might not be familiar with what Deanna's talking about, when I mentioned submitting the groundwater sustainability plan, the 2025 plan for Tri-County on the Tule side, one of the reasons that we had to meet a deadline was specifically to meet the deadline for requesting an exclusion from these fees. And the fees we're talking about are the GEARS fees, where the state was going to come in and start charging the Tule subbasin for groundwater pumping at $20 an acre foot. And in order to request that exclusion, we had to meet that, and that was done already, and that's been submitted. So there will be a state board hearing on the topic. We don't know, we're thinking April-ish is most likely the date, but just we will make you aware when we know when that hearing is going to take place. We could certainly use everybody in this room and on the call support on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, did that answer your question? That was a long answer, sorry, I wanted to just make sure everybody's aware. Okay, then moving on, if nobody else has any questions, you have
Amir?
until October 3rd? Oh, yes.
Sorry, I think there's a message in the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I can read it out loud. I just had a quick question. Are landowners going to get a heads up when someone's gonna be out at the property, like 48 hours, 72 hours? And then I was also curious, is this person gonna be taking photos of the meters, or are they just gonna be writing down a number? Just so we can
Yeah.
make sure, we're checking what they're putting into Basin Safe against our own records.
Agreed, yes and yes. We will have more specific, timelines and, And, I think some of that's still to be worked out with the consultant, or whoever we hired for, the readings, but it won't be a random day, it'll be very specific monthly, and they will be in contact with landowners as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, all right. I promise you guys we'd be out of here early today. Upcoming meeting. The Tri-County Board meeting is on October 9th at 1 p.m. It's here in Corcoran at Tri-County's offices, so, please attend. And we do have it also set up remotely, so you can attend remote as well. And then our next advisory board meeting is on October 22nd at 10 a.m. And again, same situation where it's either here in person. You're always welcome to come by. We like the company here in the room. Yeah. Yeah.
It is quiet today.
It is quiet today.
Oh, yeah,
All right. In that case, thank you, everyone, and we'll give you back half an hour of your day.
right.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.